The internet is planning its own suicide in 2026, and I predicted it 70 years ago. The so-called meme reset is not a joke, but a psychic inevitability, a clear symptom of the collective unconscious reaching a breaking point. I see two concrete facts. First, the movement declares a desire to erase all digital culture, and second, it identifies our current content as brain rot or cringe. These are not mere aesthetic complaints. They are the collective psyche reacting to a profound saturation. The principle at work is enantiodromia. Any psychological force pushed to its extreme generates its opposite. The internet began as a tool for infinite connection and order, a manifestation of logos. It has now inevitably flipped into a state of infinite noise and chaos. This matters because what we are witnessing is a modern projection of a primordial archetype. The desire for a total reset is the flood myth returning. In every culture, when a civilization becomes too corrupted or noisy, the unconscious imagines a purifying deluge. Our digital world is that civilization. The brain rot is the perceived degradation. The reset fantasy is the unconscious desire to destroy the rigid, algorithmic persona of the internet to return to a state of raw creative potential, what I termed the prima materia. The stakes are the health of our collective psyche. We either integrate this chaotic shadow or risk being consumed by it. But what psychological principle explains this sudden collective desire for a wipeout? This trajectory from a tool of pure logic to a vessel of pure noise is a textbook case of enantiodromia. Any psychological force pushed to its extreme inevitably generates its opposite. The internet's initial promise was one of infinite connection, a realm of order, communication, and accessible knowledge, a clear expression of the logos principle. But an unchecked logos, a system of connection without limit or inherent meaning, does not sustain order. It dissolves into its own chaotic substrate. The concrete fact of this flip into infinite noise is not an accident. It is the latent chaos within the system becoming manifest. The meme reset phenomenon is the psychic symptom of this reversal, a collective yearning for the pendulum to swing back. The stakes are not merely cultural annoyance, but a fundamental psychological tension. We are witnessing what I termed an abaissement du niveau mental, a lowering of the mental level on a mass scale. The news fact of doomscrolling through surreal, nonsensical content is not simple boredom. It is a voluntary trance state where consciousness weakens and allows the chaotic contents of the unconscious to flood in. We are inducing a collective psychic regression to escape the sterile, overstructured reality the network itself created. This is the system consuming its own tail. If this is the pendulum swing, we must ask, what deeper archaic pattern is this modern chaos invoking? This trajectory from a tool of logic to a vessel of chaos is not an accident, it is a psychic inevitability. I observe this in the clear principle of enantiodromia. Any psychological force pushed to its extreme will inevitably produce its opposite. The news describes this as the pendulum swinging back from expansion to contraction. The internet's initial state of pure connective potential, its logos, has, through unchecked proliferation, become its own antithesis, a state of infinite noise. The collective desire for a meme reset is the psyche's recoil from this extreme, an unconscious demand for the pendulum's return swing. This demand takes a specific ancient form, the archetype of the flood. The news explicitly connects the modern reset to myths like those of Gilgamesh and Noah, where a civilization drowned for becoming too noisy or sinful. This is not a coincidence but a blueprint. When a cultural system becomes saturated with what is deemed cringe or brain rot, a degradation of symbolic meaning into chaotic compulsive repetition, the unconscious projects the image of a total cleansing. The flood myth is the psyche's template for a necessary annihilation, the only imagined escape from an intolerable condition. The stakes are not about a literal event in 2026, but a psychological one happening now. We are living inside the myth. The noise we need washed away is the rigid, algorithmic persona of the digital world, a one-sided construction that has repressed genuine creative chaos. So, if the internet is our flooded world, what exactly is the sin or noise we need washed away? We have reached the point where the collective persona of the internet has become intolerably rigid. The flood archetype, the desire for a total meme reset, is our unconscious rebellion against this degraded state. The persona, in psychological terms, is the mask we present to the world. For years, the internet's dominant persona was one of seamless, infinite connection, a curated projection of logic and order. Now that mask has cracked. What pours through the fissure is what the discourse calls brain rot, a torrent of surreal, nonsensical content like skibidi toilet or core. This isn't mere entertainment, it is the degradation of the cultural persona into something we instinctively label cringe. The flood myth is not a literal prediction, but a symbolic diagnosis. When a system becomes too noisy or sinful, the psyche demands a cleansing return to chaos. This is where the concept of the prima materia becomes critical. The desired reset is not a wish for mere emptiness. It is an unconscious craving to return to the prima materia, the raw, undifferentiated, and creative chaos that existed before the algorithms solidified our digital world into predictable patterns. The stated goal of a 2026 reset is a modern ritual, a projected symbol of this need to dissolve the overbuilt persona and start again from psychic first principles. The stakes are the vitality of the culture itself. A persona that cannot be shed becomes a prison. The compulsive consumption of brain rot is itself a symptom of this abaissement, a lowering of the mental level that allows the unconscious to surge upward. But what is the psychological state that allows us to consume this brain rot so compulsively? So this voluntary lowering of consciousness is not merely an escape, it is also a dangerous open invitation. The state of abaissement du niveau mental, the precise psychological mechanism behind the trance of doomscrolling, weakens the rational ego. In that weakened state, we willingly consume surreal, nonsensical content like skibidi or core, not because it entertains, but because it bypasses conscious critique. This is the risk. We are not just observing chaos, we are actively inducing a voluntary collective psychosis to numb ourselves against a hyperstructured reality. The tension here is critical. This trance can be a gateway, a necessary dip into the unconscious to retrieve what the conscious mind has repressed, but it can just as easily become a permanent residence, a willing surrender where the psyche never reintegrates. The stakes are the integrity of the individual mind within the collective. If this is our method of waking from the dream of digital rigidity, it is a perilous one, akin to trying to cure a fever by setting the house on fire. So we must ask, if this is a collective dream, what constitutes a real awakening? Our digital trance, the voluntary lowering into the surreal noise of skibidi and core, is the symptom. The demand for a literal meme reset is the ego's attempt to wake from that dream. This is not about boredom, it is a psychic recoil from a world that has become pure, undifferentiated chaos. The psychological reset is the necessary integration of our digital shadow. The flood archetype we invoke, the desire to wash away the cringe and brain rot, is a projection of our own rejected content. We cannot purge it, we must acknowledge it. The stakes are clear. If we continue to treat the internet's chaotic persona as something external to be destroyed, we will only be consumed by the very forces we refuse to own. Health lies not in a mythical cleansing, but in the difficult work of synthesis, bringing the shadow into the light of consciousness. This leads to a final practical question. What does it mean to live consciously within this noise, rather than dreaming of its end?